Did you know that having a perceptive spouse can heighten the satisfaction of needs being met in your marital relationship? Stay with us as we learn how this heightened awareness can shape the dynamics of your partnership.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Marriage Hacks with Joseph,
And Miriam,
with real talk
real solutions.
for a healthy, thriving marriage. All right, welcome to another Marriage Hacks. And before we get into our scriptures, I just wanted to read a description of being perceptive. Being perceptive. A perceptive spouse is highly attuned to their partner's emotions, needs, and unspoken cues. They pick up on subtle changes in mood, body language, and tone of voice, often understanding their partner's feelings and thoughts without needing explicit communication. This sensitivity fosters deeper empathy and connection, allowing for more effective support and understanding in the relationship. Such a spouse is not only an attentive listener, but also an intuitive responder, adapting their behavior and communication to meet their partner's needs. I know that was a mouthful, but I'm going to tell you, like last week, Miriam said that description was me. This is Miriam up and down. Believe me, up and down. People that know Miriam, they will tell you. We just had I just want to share this real quick. We had a recent experience where one of our children was trying to do something secretive and without anyone knowing about it, and picks up the phone, and either Miriam called them or they called Miriam, but they were in the process of a covert activity, and Miriam started talking, basically describing what they were about to do, and my I just say daughter. My daughter said, "Mama, we can't keep nothing from you. We can't keep nothing for you." So yeah, this is my wife up and down. And I'm sure that there are some people that watch our channel on a regular basis know that this is exactly Miriam's personality. So Miriam is gonna go next, and she's gonna share our first scripture.
Before I share that first scripture, a lot of it is by unction of the Holy Spirit. He'll tell me something, and then he'll tell me when I can say it. Okay? Luke 9:47 through 48, King James Version. And Jesus, perceiving the thought of their heart, took a child and sat him by him, and said unto them, Whosoever shall receive this child in my name receiveth me, and whosoever receiveth me receiveth him that sent me. For he that is least among you all, the same shall be great.
Amen. And so the next scripture is Mark 2:8-9. This is the King James Version, and it says, And immediately when Jesus perceived in his spirit that they so reasoned within themselves, he said unto them, Why reason ye these things in your hearts? Whether is it easier to say to the sick or of the palsy, thy sins be forgiven thee, or to say, arise and take up thy bed and walk?
Improving your perception with your spouse. I am having trouble with my words today, y'all. I mean, literally, we've been at this for 10 minutes. And my words are going. So, improving your perception of your spouse involves developing a deeper understanding of their emotions and needs. Here are some ways to enhance that skill. We have 8 of them. Active listening, empathy practice or practice empathy, observe nonverbal cues, ask open-ended questions, check in on a regular basis with your spouse. Develop emotional develop emotional awareness, seek feedback, and finally, practice patience.
So I'm going to start with the first one, which is a term we've heard a lot. And this is the first one is active listening. And that involves paying a close attention to what your spouse says without interrupting. Reflect back what you've heard to confirm understanding. So you can tell by the way that she's looking at me that this is one that I don't do always that well. I do listen, but sometimes, like the mistake that most people make, they try to, while the person is talking, they trying to think about what their response is going to be. Sometimes I fall into that trap. You want to say something about that, Miriam? Anything else about it? Being an active listener, or active listener, or listening?
Because I think we're all guilty of that to a certain extent. But I know for myself, when Joe is telling me something, I'm thinking while I'm listening, and I'm also formulating my answer as I reflect on it. And I'm thinking of a way that I can put my answer without triggering him. Number 2, practice empathy. Try to put yourself in your spouse's shoes. Consider how they may be feeling based on their words and their actions. For me, Joe, that's one of those things that's more easily said and done, because I know that in the past, after we had lost the business back in 2013 and you went to work for Forsyth County in a leadership role in the janitorial department, and you used to come home and talk about how you felt like people looked down on you, and I was like, well, Joe, and I think my problem is because I don't think like that. I don't look at the janitor or look at the person that some people think are lowly. I don't look at people like that. I look at people to say, oh, that person is doing a job. And it's like I always told our kids, it doesn't matter what you do for a living, as long as you're an upright man and you're taking care of your family. You can be a CEO or you can be a garbage man. You do everything as unto the Lord and to be honorable. And Joe used to come home and talk about how he felt it was different when he was doing the same thing, but he was the owner operator. But then he was working for someone. And one particular example that I remember very clearly is when you were working for Forsyth County and you were walking toward a bunch of kids at the library, and they were up to no good, basically. And they were starting to scatter or try to fix up what they were doing. And one kid said something to the effect of, oh, don't worry, it's just the janitor. And I remember how that tore you up. That just tore you up. So as far as practicing empathy, consider how they may feel based on their words and their actions. There are just some things that I do not think that you can relate to with your spouse, your wife, your husband, your partner, whoever. I just don't think you can relate to that. All you can do is sit and listen. Because as I said, I have the mentality that, as long as you're doing an honest day's work, that's all that counts. And whenever Joe used to come home feeling defeated like that, my reaction was, well, baby, you're doing your job. And you're taking care of this family. knocking on doors before he got that job, knocking on doors, seeing if he could clean people's carpet and all that kind of thing. For me, that's honorable. But for him, it messed with his ego and his self-worth. And during that time, it was just very hard. And, every night when we would go to bed, it was basically just, it's okay, baby. You're a good man. You're taking care of your family. You're doing this. You're doing that. So I think practicing empathy is hard when it's something that you cannot relate to mentality wise. And like I said, I just couldn't relate to that because of the way I was brought up and the way we brought up the kids. You don't judge people by that.
Well, the main purpose of this episode is to show you how to enhance your perceptive skills to enhance your relationship. And I guess it bounces back to our first one as far as being an active listener. If you are a good active listener, then it makes you more intuitive when it comes to your spouse, because now things that you did not understand or things that you could not be empathetic to, now you can, because you have took the time to listen to your spouse and you know them better, and it can help you. It enhances your ability to know what's going on with them emotionally. One thing that I've learned on this new job that I'm working on now, because I work in the mental health field, and we have to know the different things that trigger the different patients that we're with. And sometimes it just takes time sitting and observing and listening to them, not just the things that they say, but even the body cues, like the description was talking about, as far as being perceptive, knowing the body language of that patient. And all of these things helps you to be more effective, whether it be on a job like I just mentioned, or in your relationship. Okay, so the next one. Okay, so you did
practice empathy.
Okay, so we're on observe nonverbal cues, right? So observe nonverbal cues. Notice changes in body language. I just mentioned that. Facial expressions and tone of voice, which can provide insights into their emotional state. Now, one of the main things that I know about my wife is if she calls me by my entire name, Joseph Maurice Willis. Now, she very seldom says Maurice, but if she says Joe Willis.
Yeah, Joe Willis.
That's enough to be alarmed. Okay? and also I know her tone. I know the different changes in her tone, and I know her body language also. And so
after 35 years, 36 years, you should.
And so I've had a long time to observe the nonverbal cues in our relationship. And so don't ignore those things. Use those things to your advantage.
If you know when to move.
That's right.
When to leave.
Know when to duck.
Also, talk about the changes in body language. Joe gets frustrated very easily. So whenever I hear, I think to myself, oh God, what is it now? And it can be just the simplest things he gets wound up about. And I just go, baby, what is it? And he may tell me what it is. And I'm like, well, Joe, just do A, B, C, D. And then he'll look at me like, why didn't I think of that? I'm like, I don't know. It's just, but Joe gets I think the word is exacerbated very easily. And that's something that drives me crazy. So like I said, when I hear that inside, I go, oh Lord, what is it? So the nonverbal cues, the facial expressions, the tone of voice, Joe even has a particular way he stands when he's feeling proud or he's feeling confident, and when he does a certain stance, I go, oh, I'm feeling good. And then when he does another stance, I'm like, oh, him ain't feeling too good. So he knows the thing about me is, I've told y'all before, I shut down. And he knows that when I shut down, just stay out my way. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, ask open-ended questions. Encourage your spouse to share their thoughts and feelings more deeply by asking questions that require more than just a yes or no answer. Okay, when I saw that Joe used this as a bullet point, because all of this that we talk to you all about is knowledge that we've gleaned over the 36 years that we've been together. Just had our 35th wedding anniversary 2 days ago. If you're going to ask open-ended questions, you need to be prepared for the answer. Because open-ended questions that need to be more than just a yes or a no answer, it goes back to the practicing empathy and knowing what triggers your spouse, what they can handle and what they cannot handle as an answer. I think it is good to ask open-ended questions, but are you ready for the answer that your spouse is going to give? And is your spouse going to have to tiptoe around his or her answer? Is your spouse going to be able to give his or her honest opinion without triggering you, triggering a memory, triggering an emotion, that kind of thing? So that ask open-ended questions, that's one of those things that I think takes time to develop. Like going back to the one that we did, the video we did on marital trust. I've referred back to that video several times because that video was very much about communication. I personally think that asking the open-ended questions, encouraging your spouse to share their thoughts, I think that's the kind of thing that just needs to be done incrementally. So you can just kind of test the waters and see how far you actually can go.
And I'm going to tell you something.
Oh, Lord.
The reason why my wife is saying this is because my wife has a very military personality, to the point that if you didn't know better, you would have thought that she spent years in the military. Because my wife has a drill sergeant mentality, and she's got better over the years, but she can be very abrasive in her critiques, to the point that if I ask Miriam an open-ended question, I brace myself mentally and sometimes physically. I brace myself for the answers that I'm going to get. Because I say, okay, Joe, you're going to hear some things that you don't like. She's going to tell you some things that you don't like that's probably going to be true. And it's going to be harsh realities that you need to face. And guess what? This woman is going to make you face them. And it's coming from years of experience of dealing with me, because I'm a very emotional and sensitive person. So dealing with me, so she has to scale back her natural tendencies to accommodate me, but not just me, probably other people also.
You,
yeah, but me too, but mainly me. But it reminds me, and I'm not going to say this person's name, but if she's watching, she will know who she is. But we used to go to a church years ago, and we had a person that was an excellent singer and excellent director. And she had the ability to bring the best out of everybody. But people were complaining that she was abrasive. And they didn't like the way that she did it. But guess what? She got the job done. And nobody could do her job like she did. But no one could deny that this person brought to the table something that couldn't nobody else bring. You know, yes, was she abrasive? Yes. And I'm gonna tell you something. And this is this is something I'm speaking on an ethnic difference that was discussed during this time, that in a black,
it was early 2000s.
Yeah, in early 2000s. But in a black household, in most black, and not all, because I don't want this thing to be a stereotypical thing, but in a lot of black households, we're used to talking loud to each other. And we're not, a lot of times we're talking loud, we're not fussing. That's just the way, the way that we communicate. That's just the way that we speak. And so this person was also coming from that environment, that upbringing.
And it was a white, predominantly, it was a mixed church, but predominantly white.
Yeah, it's predominantly white. But so she came across that way to people that weren't that wasn't brought up with that type of environment. And so to them it was offensive.
But to us it was, what'd she do wrong?
Yeah. With us it's like, okay, what else you want me to do? You know? And so that environment, even though I'm a very sensitive person, that environment, without that environment, I would have found it hard to be with the spouse that I'm with now. But because I was brought up in that environment, even though I am very sensitive and emotional, even in my own difficulties, I was able to accept it.
So I'm an itch with a B?
Yo, what?
Because sometimes, baby, the things you say makes me come across like an itch with a bee.
No.
Anyway.
No, my wife is, I don't even know what I would do without my wife. My wife is a support beam in this relationship, you know, in a lot of ways. And I need that drill sergeant type personality in my life. So, no, I don't regret marrying my wife, and to me, it's a positive thing, even though it's hard for me to deal with at times.
I've had some people say, Miriam, it's like you're the man and he's the woman, and I'm like, yeah, it just works, you know, for whatever reason, it works. Okay.
Well, I don't want everybody to think I'm that soft.
No, he's not. I never will forget this church that we went to. This has been well over 30 years ago. And people thought, because the way I am, they thought that I run all over Joe. And I don't. Joe is the head of our household. When something's going on, I go to him and I ask him. And this one particular time, we went to this church called Praise Assembly Christian Center. And after church, you know how you talk. And apparently I was talking for too long. And Joe went, "Woman, come on here." And I went, "Okay, baby, I'm coming." And I ended the conversation. And one of the men came up to him later and were like, "She actually did what you told her to do." And then he did it again a couple of weeks ago, and I looked at him and I laughed, and I was like, "Oh, you trying to show off." But anyway.
Oh. All right, are we ready for the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, regular check-ins. Have consistent, honest conversation about how each of you is feeling and what might need adjustment in the relationship. I'm trying to think if we do this. Now, if we do this, Miriam is easier at at taking whatever and moving on.
Yeah.
I'm the one that wants to go back and say, hey, wait a minute, we need to talk about this. You know. And Miriam's like, well, I'm moving on. You know, but I'm like, wait a minute.
It is what it is.
Yeah, you can't move on yet because I'm still dealing with this. I'm still having issues with this. I know you want to move on. I said, but we cannot move on. I said, let's talk about it. And I know sometimes it irritates Miriam, but she never rejects me. She never pushes me away. She will sit down and take time to listen to what I have to say, and then she will tell me how she feels. You know, and sometimes she'll say, well, Joe, I didn't want to say this, but since you pushing me in this corner, I'm going to tell you. This is how I feel about it.
You should keep pushing it.
You should have did this. You shouldn't have did that. And I would have done this. And you know me. And you know me. And when she starts saying, and you know me,
you are making me come off like an itch with a pin.
I'm in deep trouble when she starts saying, and you know me.
Yeah.
But anyway, but in the end, those regular check-ins make things better. Okay.
I agree with that because we had a situation a couple of weeks ago where Joe, I've told y'all, and the kids know it, Joe loves to make grandiose statements. And he made a grandiose statement. And I sat on that grandiose statement for about a week and a half. And they ain't saying anything. I'm like, God, you gonna give me an opportunity to say something. And God gave me that opportunity. And I looked at him and I went, well, Joe, a little over a week ago, you made this statement. With the way that you're behaving, is that statement true? Or he just stopped because he knew what I was talking about. And he changed the subject and walked away. He walked away. And I knew that it got to him. But I just had to find that right moment. Because the moment that he made the statement, even though I knew it was just puffery, I knew it was just a grandiose statement, I knew that was not the time to talk about it. That just wasn't the time. And I was like, well, Lord, when you give me the okay. And like I said, it was a little over a week later, God gave me the okay to say something to him. And because if I had said something to him immediately, he wouldn't have received it because, like I said, he was being grandiose. He wouldn't have received it. But then there was that calm time when it was like, okay. And that leads into our next one, develop emotional awareness. Dang, why do I keep saying awareness? Develop emotional awareness. Work on understanding your own emotions and how they influence your perceptions of your spouse. And that goes all the way back to the active listening, practicing empathy, observing verbal cues, and the open. I mean, that literally just encompasses it all. As I was saying, you got to know when it's a good time to say something, when it's a good time, when it's a time to just kind of jump in, and when there's a time like the story I just gave you to lay back and wait for that opportunity. And that developing emotional awareness was when, like Joshua, I keep saying awareness. Awareness is like when Joe was saying he just keeps scratching at something, scratching at it. And I'm like, Joe, leave me alone. There's a story when Hannah and Rachel were little. And Rachel, when she was thinking, she used to curl her hair like this, and she'd suck on her lip like this. And Hannah just kept poking at her, just poking. And Rachel went, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Hannah thought it was funny. Poking at her. And without missing a beat, Rachel stopped twirling her hair and whoop! Hannah right in the nose. Phoop, took her hand back and went right back to...
Gave her a bloody nose.
Oh, and Hannah came running to me, Mama, look what Rachel did. And I saw the whole thing happened. And I looked at Hannah and said, you should have left her alone. I wasn't going to punish Rachel. You know, I did talk to Rachel about her response, but I wasn't going to punish her because Hannah shouldn't have been poking the bear. Get the hint, Joe?
I hear you.
Okay. Sometimes things just need to be left alone, and developing that emotional awareness is when you know when to say something, when you know when not to say something, and you know when to just be there. We had a situation this week, yesterday as a matter of fact, where Joe has been dealing with this tooth. He's been dealing with this tooth, and it came.
And let me stop. And that's why we didn't record yesterday. We normally record on Tuesdays, and so we had to record today because of what she's about to tell you.
And me, I'm the type of person when I don't feel well, don't come hugging up on me, just leave me alone. But Joe, on the other hand, is the type of person when he doesn't feel well, he wants to be loved on and cooed over and that kind of thing. So yesterday I got finished with my clients, and we had time before I needed to get up, wake the grandbaby up, and take him to school. And he just kind of rolled over away from me when he didn't feel well because, the tooth was just so bad. And I thought that was unusual that he did that, because usually he wants to, crawl into my intestines, so to speak. And so instead of just automatically just going and grabbing him because his body language said, leave me alone, I said, well, do you want me to hold you? And he just said, no. So because I read his body language, he rolled over away from me when normally he would roll to me. I didn't just grab him and go, come here. I was like, do you want me to hold you? Which is basically the kind of thing he has to ask me. But he got that tooth out. It was really in bad shape, and he had been walking the floors at night because of it. So it's just, this knowing your partner is just so intricate. It's just so intricate and has so many different layers. It's the knowing them physically, knowing them sexually, knowing them mentally, the whole bit. Even as far as knowing, when your spouse wants to have sex, the way they communicate with their bodies and all that kind of stuff. That's even part of the whole developing emotional awareness.
Yeah. Some of Miriam's intuition can sometimes get on my nerves. I'm just going to be honest with you. Because you know how somebody, before you even open your mouth, they know what you're going to say? It's like, well, let me say it. No. And then it's like
kids, they're like that too.
Yeah, like sometimes, like she can interpret my breath. It's like,
yeah, I do.
He's breathing like this. Oh, so that means he wants sex.
Yeah.
I like, oh my word. Okay.
It's true.
At least let me, But anyway, and so, but most of the time, having a perceptive and intuitive spouse is very beneficial, because it's good for someone that you have someone that has such a close connection with you. And the only way that you're gonna get it is enhancing all of these points that we're going over. That's the only way that you're gonna get this type of relationship, that you know what your spouse needs, even before they ask. And I love the scripture in the Bible where it says God knows what we have need of even before we ask. You know, and so that's a God like tendency that your spouse knows what you have need of, even before you can even ask them that they're there, even before your beck and call. You know, everybody like, oh, they're there at my beck and call. But what if you have somebody that's there even before your beck and call?
Because when his tooth started acting up, I automatically started thinking, okay, we're going to get him to the dentist. And I praise God for our daughter-in-law, Savannah, Stephen's husband. Stephen's wife.
She was a huge blessing.
She was a blessing because
yesterday.
She works for a dental group, and I was unable to get through over the phone, and she was like, don't worry, Ma, I'll take care of it. And she literally did. She texted me, when you get here, do this, and that, and I will be in the room with Pops. I mean, she totally took care of that situation. She was totally a blessing. But back to what I was saying, that even before we got Savannah got us the appointment, I was thinking, okay, what do I need to do to take care of him? How are we going to pay this bill? How much is this bill going to be? And, you know, in my mind, I'm going over finances because my baby was in pain and I had to make sure that he's going to be okay. So while our appointment wasn't until 11 o'clock, but before we even got there, I had worked out everything in my head because I didn't care how much it cost. My baby was in pain. He had been walking the floor. He was darn near in tears. He even considered interrupting me when I was with a client, and that's something that he normally would not do. So yeah, it was all about taking care of him. And then once he was taken care of, we got the tooth pulled, then he became Superman. I'm going running. I'm like, no, you ain't. You're going to lay your butt down. But Miriam, I feel fine. Yeah, you need all that cool air, sucking in all that cool air. Anyway, that's a totally different.
So anyway, Chris, you hear that? That's why I didn't come.
That's why he didn't come.
That's why I didn't come to Kingdom Runners yesterday. I wanted to run. I felt like I could run.
And I looked at him and I went,
she was like, no.
Go if you want to. Because he knew that meant if it backfired on him, don't come to me with Miriam. I don't feel good. I'd have been like, it is what it is.
Yeah, I would have had a mouthful if I would have went out there and ran, and then like she said, if it would have backfired, oh my word.
And there's sometimes when things backfire, I don't say a word. I just look at him and go and walk away, and he knows, oh crap. Okay, Joe, number 7.
Okay, number 7. Seek feedback. Ask your spouse how well they feel understood, and if there are areas where your perception could improve.
That's the open-ended.
Yeah, that's an open-ended statement there.
Yeah.
But that's a good point. That's a good point. Feedback, every time you get these little things on the internet, every time you buy a product or you try a service, they want feedback.
Yeah.
They want feedback so they can improve on their product or improve on their service. And if we want to improve as far as being a perceptive spouse, we need to have feedback. We need to go and say, hey, how did you feel about my response, or the way I handled this, or the way I handled that? Was it to your satisfaction? And did you understand the point that I was trying to make? Because sometimes you will communicate something and that person will have a complete and total different understanding than what you thought.
It's about perception.
Yeah, because I've told, and it's been vice versa. I've told Miriam things before, and that she would come back and she would be mad. I'm like, and then she would tell me how she understood it. I was like, wait a minute, I didn't mean it like that at all. And then I would have to go back and I would have to say, hey, this is what I meant when I said such and such, or this is what I meant when I did such and such. And sometimes that's very critical, because that's where the devil will work.
Yeah.
He'll work in between the lines.
Yeah. And with your insecurities, like what we talked about last month, where you accused me of being attracted to someone or showing someone attention, and I'm sitting there going, I didn't do that, and how you just kind of threw it at me, and I was just like, oh my God, what did I do? And it made me question everything that I do. It really made me question. And so we had to talk that thing out, because a couple of weeks, well, like a week and a half later, I had a situation where I just kind of shrunk back when I shouldn't shrink back, because I was so afraid of what he would say.
And so we had to have that conversation, and I had explained to her, no, under those circumstances, that would have been totally appropriate. You could have, and I wouldn't have read that any other way. But what happened was, in that situation, I read in between the lines, and my reading in between the lines were wrong. Okay? And so that's why it is so important to have the feedback. So to eliminate the reading between the lines. Okay, I guess we're on the last one, right?
Yeah, practice patience. Building perceptive skills takes time, which we've said. Be patient with yourself and with your spouse as you develop a more nuanced way of understanding each other. One thing that my daughter Rachel had made a comment about another person's marriage, and she said, I don't like the way they do so and so. And I know one time she said, Mom, I don't like the way you and Daddy talk to each other. And I'm like, baby, you got to understand, every relationship has a rhythm. And when you meet your significant other, I may come to your house and the way y'all do stuff may make me want to puke. Well, okay, well, that's what you want to do, because that's your house. You have to know that your marriage, your partnership, you have your own rhythm, the way you do things. There are some people that talk Gucci, 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 ain't one of those, to each other. And I would listen to that and think to myself, oh God, give me a bucket so I can throw up. There are some people that they're happy when they're arguing. They're most happy when they're arguing. I don't want to be like that either. There's got to be a middle ground, and you have to find your middle ground. You have to find your rhythm of how you relate to each other. And many times that has to do with the dynamics or the dynamic of your family. Like I think of friends who have special needs, one or more special needs children. Their dynamic may have to be totally different than Joe's and my dynamic, or yours and your person's dynamic. You just cannot sit and judge and say, well, I don't like, because I had to apologize to a person this weekend because of the way I had perceived her husband. And she is one of these people that I can really speak honestly to. We're one of those people that I can bare my soul and she can bare hers without being judgmental. And there were some things that I saw her husband do that I thought were just really crappy. And I spoke to her about those things, and she explained to me their rhythm. And I thought to myself, okay, so I've been having this thought against that person for all this time. And I sat there and I apologized to her. I didn't only apologize, but I repented to the Lord as we were sitting there. And I asked God to forgive me, because I did not personally see it as their relationship rhythm. I just saw it as him doing an injustice. Again, perception. And with the way that things were, she was perfectly fine. I was looking at the situation through my mind and the way I perceive stuff. So like I said, I apologized to her unequivocally. I was wrong. You said I'm wrong. I'm taking it at your word. And I asked her to forgive me. And I sat there and we were in a restaurant and I asked God to forgive me.
But just think about all of the relationships that have ended because people lacked patience to, like this last point said, they lacked the patience to develop a more nuanced understanding of each other. You know, if they would have just had the patience, that relationship could have worked and probably flourished. But they did not have that patience.
And another thing you have to think of, you know, I equate this to my dream house. My dream house is different than the dream house I thought I wanted at 25, 35, 45. The way you relate to your spouse becomes different as you grow and as you develop, and the longer time that you are together, the way that you relate to each other, those nuances and everything, they change. For instance, I posted on Facebook a picture of Joe and me on our honeymoon, and I looked at them and I was like, look at those two people. They were so young. They didn't know what was ahead of them. And I asked myself, what would I tell them if I could go back as Joe and me now? If we could go back 35 years, we're at Carowinds, and meet them at Carowinds and give them a word of knowledge, what would I say? And my reaction was, put God first, hold each other tightly and don't let go. There's going to be good times and there's going to be bad times. But you're going to be okay because love always wins. Because that's really the way that I feel. Could that have been my answer 10 years ago? I don't know, because I don't know what was going on in our lives 10 years ago. Would that have been my answer 20 years ago? I don't know. I'm a different person than I was 20 years ago. Because God takes us from glory to glory to glory to glory. And in each one of those glories, prayerfully, there is maturity. Mm-hmm. And the way you relate to each other in your marital relationship over the years has to do with how you mature and how you change as the years pass.
Now, it was a total coincidence that when we got to Carowinds, that the very pastor that married us and part of the youth,
they were there
of the church. They were there at Carowinds, and Miriam was saying that she could look back and there were some things that if she could do all over again, guess what? I wouldn't have let Reverend Brown talk to me into getting on that roller coaster. Reverend Brown was like, "You scared?"
I love that man.
Yeah, Reverend Brown was like one of the greatest pastors. But I guess when he got wind that I don't like roller coasters, he was like, "Ah, you chicken!" Bop, 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 bop. He was like making the chicken sound. You scared to get on a roller coaster? You scared to get on a roller coaster? And with my knees shaking. They were visibly shaking, and Reverend Brown saw my knees shaking, and the other people, the youth, they saw my knees shaking. They were rolling.
They were.
But you guess what? I got on that roller coaster
and screamed like a little girl.
I don't think I screamed, but mine. but I got on.
I said, scream like a little girl.
I got on that roller coaster with my knees shaking. I got off with the knees shaking.
And I looked at Joe and went, "Baby, why did you do that? You should have come with me." No.
But I wanted to end with a laugh. I just wanted to end with a laugh. But I really hope that this episode blessed you. I know it blessed me just by going through the points and talking through the points, because it just what it did for me, it just made things more. I'm trying to think of the word.
Concrete.
Yeah,
maybe?
concrete. Yeah, concrete. As far as the different experiences that we have experienced over our 36 plus years being together, and why we made certain decisions, and
and most of our decisions, Joe, I'm gonna say 98% of our decisions I don't regret.
Yeah.
I would literally go back and do it again. The only thing that I would change is I wouldn't worry so much.
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry, because sometimes I would worry myself into a tizzy. I wish that I have the mentality that I have now, but that's part of maturing. We would make these decisions and then it would be, oh God, did we make the right decision? But that's the way I was feeling on the inside. But on the outside, I was like, Joe, we made this decision. Now we got to stick to it, because I'm just a firm believer. Make a decision and stick to it. I can honestly say there is very, very, very little that I regret or that I would do differently. I think that overall, we've had a good life. And it's because of the way we've chosen to live our lives.
And Miriam made a very profound statement even before we started recording. We were upstairs in the bedroom getting ready. And she was like, Joe, I'm paraphrasing, but she basically was saying, Lord, if God doesn't do anything else for us, and this is the best that it's gonna get, then I'll be okay. I'm satisfied. And even though that we obviously believe in God for much more, that was a very, for me, a very telling statement of just having a positive perspective of where you are at this present time. But
and as a side note, next week when we do our video, that'll be our last video for 2 weeks, because we're leaving next weekend for our 8-day Caribbean cruise. We're leaving.
Yeah.
And we won't have, I thought the package that we bought for the internet package for the ship included YouTube, but apparently it does not. I thought we could record on the ship. So after next week, it'll be 2 weeks before you get another video from us. Just wanted to let you know that.
Now, one thing that I may do is maybe record some scenery or memorable moments. Memorables, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I totally expect us to do that.
Yeah, memorable. I'm sorry. Rememberable. I'm doing, I guess Miriam
rubbed off on you.
Yeah, we're having our moments. Special moments on the ship and during the trip. I'll probably will do something of that effect. And some kind of way share them on our channel. All right, so as always, we ask for you to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Maybe this is your first time listening to one of our episodes, and if you like the material, please subscribe to our channel.
Yes.
And as always, we will leave valuable resources in our description, so check that out as well. So until the next time,
y'all.
Have a blessed and prosperous day.
Bye-bye.